Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Day After podcast.
What is up, guys? I'm not in my usual studio right now. We really wanted to fit in an interview with Brandon Boothe, but I got
Perfect. Starting off good here with another freeze. Uh, yeah, he's definitely not in a Wi-Fi scenario right now, so you might be cutting in and out here.
Oh,
He's back.
all
got
right.
it.
I disconnected from Wi-Fi. Hopefully that makes things better.
Okay.
How much of that did you actually hear?
A little
Like
bit. I think you just
the
mentioned we're here
alignment.
with Brandon Boothe, and
Yeah,
then you cut out.
that's it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
essentially, I wanted to make sure that I was able to do this interview and also not be late to work. So this was the compromise. So you see me in a
Perfect.
bit of a different setting right now.
Excellent.
Nice,
Excellent.
nice. Well, Brandon, how's it going? It's been a little bit now since our season,
Whew.
so yeah, how you feeling being a Vanquish alum?
You know what? It's fun. I mean, so Vanquish was I had heard about orgs and stuff before. And I guess DRGs, or I don't know. I don't really know the lingo, so I won't even pretend, but I'd heard of this stuff before and I'd always kind of wanted to try it, but never really felt like I was gonna have the time, or I have little kids and stuff. So it was like
Hmm.
I can't commit to that. Um so Vanquish was really my first experience, and I didn't do much beforehand other than kind of try to watch a little bit of the mini season before we went on. So it was
Hmm.
kind of my trial by baptism, my baptism by fire there that I went through. And since I've gotten to watch you, Ryan, on the Heroes versus Villain mini, and I've kind of feel like I'm like starting to be like part of this little, LRG community a little bit. So it's fun. I mean, yeah, my world's kind of opened up. It's fun. I'm still in touch with a lot of people from our season, off and on, not much, but a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're gonna be, kind of like connected for years, which is fun. It's nice. Like, I don't meet many new friends at kind of my stage of life, other than like
Yeah.
maybe parents of other, kids, my kids' friends, maybe some of those parents. Other than that, that's about it. So it's like, oh, I've got new friends all of a sudden. That's nice. So it's good. It's good. Kids are on spring break this week, so we've been traveling a little bit. So it's nice. I'm glad to reconnect. I got to go through my confessionals the last day or so just to refresh my memory, and it's funny to kind of go back through the Candyland sagas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel that. Oh, I looked at some of my confessionals, and I'm just such a villain in my confessionals that it's just like, oh wow, look at me just saying like,
Yep.
this person's an idiot. Why are they doing this?
Oh,
You know, so
I,
yeah.
I've been listening to the tell-alls from Heroes versus Villains, and the last one that came out, Corey, he shed some light on. He apparently was not a big fan of me at all.
oh,
I have to give him acting props,
mm.
but now I don't feel so bad for throwing him under the bus. You know, that
Maybe
blitzed
at the
over
end of
me.
this, you can tell
Yeah.
us about Chattergate, because I still don't quite understand what happened there.
All right. Well, they're in the tell-alls, but first we need to get towards your tell-all.
Okay,
So
all right, all right, all
since
right.
you're new to here, you're only
Yeah.
our second guest ever. Some of our guests may have not seen Candyland yet, which if you
Okay.
haven't, please watch it. What do you
Yes.
do? Like tell us about it yourself. I know you said you have kids.
Mm.
You're married, right?
Yep.
Tell us
Yep.
about yourself.
Okay, so I grew up here in Atlanta. I was an engineer for a while and went back to business school, and then I kind of set off on a little, on my own little adventures. I moved over to Asia, and I spent about 10 years in Hong Kong and Tokyo, and I met my husband over there. Uh, and we were kind of outdoorsy people, so we did lots of hikes. That's kind of where we got engaged. Our first date was a hike, and so I proposed to him on that same hike like several years
Cute.
later. Um,
Nice.
so we used to do a lot of like kind of hiking races, adventure races, trail runs, triathlons, all that kind of stuff together, and that was kind of what we were up to. But we, knew we wanted to get married, and we knew we wanted to have kids, so we were both overseas there for a while, and got married, and then you know did the whole uh childbirth journey, which is we'll leave that for a whole separate podcast. But we had them. We were in Hong Kong, so we stayed there for about a year with the kids, and then we both had kind of again been overseas, been doing that for quite a while, and we're ready just to move on, to come back closer to home, be closer to family. So we moved back to San Francisco. So I worked for many years in natural skincare. So I worked at Burt's Bees for a long time. That's what took me over to Asia. And when I left, I joined another startup, and it was a company that I was a co-founder of called Thrive Natural Care. We do like regenerative agriculture and take those ingredients and put them in really great skincare products. So that's what I had been doing up until about December. And in December, last year, I just kind of said I need to take a little bit of time for myself. I've just been kind of going. You know, we were overseas. We had twins. We both, my husband and I both had startups when we were in San Francisco. We moved back to Atlanta. There was COVID and the kids starting school, and it was like a lot. And work was getting to be a lot. And I just kind of didn't feel like I was being myself at home mostly. And so I said, you know what, I need to just take a little bit of time off. So now I say I am a stay-at-home father. That is what I do.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
So how long have you been a Survivor fan? I know you talked about you heard about Oregon stuff, but where does your fandom start from?
Day one, day one. I in fact watched. I used to watch Eco Challenge with Mark Burnett's, and so then when I heard about Survivor, I had hopped on the little bandwagon. I remember watching the very first episode. I was at my grandmother's house in Ohio, and I was like in college, just kind of finishing up college at the time. Yes, I'm a little older. And I remember watching it there and thinking, oh my God, this is awesome. I want to do this. I want to be part of this. And part of it was like just that adventure of it. But I've been watching since the first season, never missed it, even overseas. I always found a way to watch the seasons, maybe a day or two behind, but I always watched them. And then probably about 10 years ago, I kind of found the world of like RHAP and podcasting and all that kind of stuff and kind of became an even deeper cut fan probably. So that's kind of where I'd heard about LRGs and kind of always said, oh, I'd love to do that. If I don't actually, never actually got to do the real thing, I'd love to do that. But, little kids and being overseas and stuff kind of made that all a little bit challenging. But
Yeah.
I saw the thing from Vanquish from Kristen and said, oh, let's give it a shot. So
Nice. What would you say is your favorite season then? Since you've been watched it
yeah.
from the very get-go.
I love a lot of them for a lot of different reasons. I mean, Pearl Island has always been my favorite, really. Just
It's a good one.
it's a good
Yeah.
one. I mean, you just
S tier.
first of all, just thematically, it was so much fun. That like first episode where they're running through the market in the village, like that's awesome. You
Yeah.
got such big characters, Johnny Fairplay and Rupert and Sandra, and even like Lil and those. It's just it's a great season. And just a lot of fun. I mean, I love Cayenne, I love Tony as well. And who doesn't love Micronesia and Heroes vs. Villains? I mean, those are like my
Yeah.
ones, but
Yeah.
probably Pearl Islands in terms of like a first time players and like just like when I first think of it, I think of Pearl Islands. That's just perfect season for me.
Yeah. I think that's
Solid
definitely
choice.
the best like old school like
Yeah,
pre-idol
yeah,
seasons like
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Just like the storytelling, the characters, the
Mm,
gameplay. Like it
totally.
was hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah, totally.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's so
Okay.
funny because I think back about it and I remember not really being a huge Sandra fan back then either. Like, when you're young, you're kind of like oh, I don't think I was a Rupert fan necessarily, but
Uh-huh.
I don't remember. I also don't like Lil. I think I was kind of rooting for Johnny Fairplay at the time, but it's funny now, like in retrospect, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like totally a Sandra fan, but like that in those early days, like,
Yeah.
right afterward,
It'd be like that. You grow as
yeah,
a person and then
yeah,
your kind
yeah,
of
Change.
perspective
yeah,
changes a
changes.
lot. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I was definitely rooting for Johnny Fairplay. I wanted
Yeah.
him to get to
Same.
win. It would have been so fun.
I actually stopped
I was a
watching.
gamer at heart. So,
Yeah.
Same.
I stopped watching Micronesia for like a couple months
mm,
because he was voted off first. And I was like, man, this is bull crap. Uh, now I'm
well,
like, oh, okay, yeah. And I know more about that. But
yeah.
anywho, so let's get into when the meet and greet happens, you open
Mm,
up and you see 14 other contestants.
mm.
Run us what you were like thinking through that time and during this meet and greet.
So it was definitely like, and so our meet and greet was, I think it was like just, was it? Oh, I guess, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's right. I'm like, was it the first challenge? No, it was when they spun the wheel and put us
Mhm.
on the teams. So I didn't know anybody, and I didn't really know how these orgs work that well. I remember I was like looking back at my like, conventional night. I asked like Chris, I'm like, now are we gonna be able to talk to individuals? I wasn't sure how any of it worked. So when I got on there, I'm like, okay, I don't really know like any of these people. And I'm like, do they all know each other? Or am I like gonna be like the first one out here? I really had no idea what to think. I was surprised in like the variety of people I saw. I was kind of expecting like a lot of like 22-year-olds, like, who were like, I don't know why I was thinking that, but I was. And so then, I saw kind of like a big variety of people. And then I saw like Janet and Tanya and Alex come on. I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is fun. And I am a big fan. I've been a fan for a long time. So seeing Janet, and I knew Tanya, but I didn't recognize her initially. So like
Mhm.
I was kind of
It's been over 20 years since she's played. You're not,
right.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you're not
And
at
you
fault.
know,
Tanya,
Thailand's not
yeah.
necessarily like the most
Yeah.
fondly
Yeah.
remembered
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. Doesn't
So
get a lot of replay. Doesn't. No.
yeah, exactly. But when we were doing like all the meet and greet, everyone talking, was there anyone who was like standing out as like, I want this person on your tribe?
It's funny. Yes. So two people I had like big stars beside. It's funny because I ended up not really working with either of them, but Rachel and Sherry were the two that I'd
Mhm,
kind of like starred first, mostly because they were like kind of smiley. And I
Mhm.
don't know what it was about Rachel, but I just kind of saw like a little bit of like gleam in her eyes, like, oh, I like
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
I like her look. I like the way she feels like she's engaged, but like cool. Like, I don't know. So her
there.
and
No, no,
and
no.
Sherry
She
both.
always has this because I
Yeah.
wanted to approach her for Heroes versus Villains, and I did get
Yeah.
to work with her. It's
Yeah.
like, but then but I also knew everyone else was also trying to work with
Yeah.
her. Like, she is
Yeah.
like, she just has such a, what's the
Yeah.
word? It's such a inviting like personality. It's like, oh, she
Yeah.
seems very approachable. So
Totally.
like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Totally.
that's just her biggest
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
it
she
comes
Yeah.
to
she was
these.
she was on my list too of people who I
Is
was
that right?
planning on working with. So it
Very
was,
smiley. It was
yeah,
like from not being able to have any conversation, like there's not much to go off of, It's like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's like purely just like the small little 20-second
Yeah.
presentation
Yeah.
they gave us is all we could
Exactly.
go off of. So
Exactly. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else who the one person who I was like a little bit about was Alex. It's funny.
mhm,
And maybe part of that was because I had seen some of the mini and saw that people were saying he was like a little bit like of a wild card.
mhm,
But
Yeah.
I could tell he was also very loud, and I just was
yeah,
like, oh gosh, he's going to be a dominating player.
yeah.
I'm not ready for that. So
I,
he was
I was
not.
really
Yeah.
hoping to be with him just so he could be a first boot. Like that was
Yeah,
my goal. Was
yeah,
like if he's
yeah.
on my drive, like let's let's
Easy
do that
first,
That
again.
easy
that's
first.
why I targeted him his for the first time we played together. I was like, this dude, he's gonna steal screen time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, how did you like your, for the OG Lollipop tribe? Like, would you say that you liked it from the get-go, or did it take some time to really get in there?
Yeah, I mean, my style, Joe. I'm pretty
Mhm.
chatty. I'm pretty
Yeah.
chatty, Kathy. So I was talking with everybody kind of right off the bat. We had our first night, we did kind of a group call, and we were on for a couple hours. And I will say Janet, who I love, she was like a little bit of a dominating presence because she wanted to give a lot of advice and that kind of thing. And I could tell immediately she was like rubbing some people the wrong way.
Hmm.
But in a similar way to Alex, I was like, we want to keep Janet. As long as we can keep Janet, she'll be a big shield for us. Either people want to vote for her or people want to work with her. Either way, if I've got her close, that's a good thing. So I was excited to play with Janet. I also, she'd just been on a couple seasons ago. So I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. This is interesting. And she was actually like, and I think everybody on old OG Lollipops kind of would say this now. Like she actually had really great advice for us in a way. Like she was just like, look, you guys, we don't need to like go crazy right now. Like when we come to a vote, we're going to have a vote. And this is probably, she also knew she was not long for the game because,
Hmm.
spoiler, right? She decided to step out the very first vote. But she was like, you guys just think about what you want to do with the other tribes, think about this, but like keep talking, keep working on relationships together. And I think that just instilled this like this right mentality. Even if some of the specific advice, like, hey, stay lollipop strong, whatever, it's like maybe I wouldn't necessarily say that's the best, but at least building those relationships, I think getting into that habit was really good for us because, you know, when we merged and swapped and everything, I realized the other tribes weren't really doing that very much. And so
Mhm.
in a way, we were very much, I would say, kind of had stronger relationships among lollipops and had kind of, I don't know, just it felt like we were a tighter group than maybe some of the other groups. Now, part of that's probably because we had to go to a couple tribal councils, but you know,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I will say also just based on the viewer experience, it did seem like my fan versus fave three peeps were kind of, especially on that tribe. I mean, Johnny's a big personality and
mm,
he has big dick energy, and
yeah,
you know that he often draws a lot of attention.
yeah,
Janet being at the so like you know it kind of looked like you had like a, I don't want to say an easy way to four, but
yeah,
you kind of knew your boot order in
yeah.
regards.
I would say, yeah, it's funny. So definitely the very first day we had the call, three of us stayed on, three left. Janet kind of had to go.
Mhm.
And then Johnny and Coach RC left pretty soon thereafter. And so Sam and Mike and I really stayed on for probably another hour after everybody had left. And that really solidified that the three of us. And we were really tight. I knew, so both of them had played in a lot of orgs before.
Mhm.
Sam kind of downplayed it a little bit, said he'd done one or two. Turns out he actually like runs some of them, I guess, sometimes. But Mike had said, no, I've done a bunch. It's fun. But Mike's very much like, you know, chill and not overly strategic, at least doesn't come off that way. Sam, on the other hand, comes off very strategic. But I said, hey, look, these are great guys for me. We connected. We had lots of good conversations. And so I think we were pretty locked in for that pre-merge and felt pretty solid, you know, for a while now. I'll tell you some things shifted after a while, but I don't think we were set on getting rid of Janet. Honestly, at that first vote, we were not. I was, like I said, I was kind of had been like seeding this idea of like, hey, buddy, my little girl's coming in. I'm doing a podcast. Okay, I'll come out later. Um, um, I'd been kind of like pushing to Sam, saying, look, she could be a good shield for us, whatever. And Sam, I felt like it was the other person who really had kind of some command of people's attention there. So was kind of trying to seed my thoughts there and let him kind of
Mhm.
take the lead with that was kind of my approach to things. Um, Johnny, unfortunately, it really wasn't personality wise. He was less, he and Janet both were less communicative kind of in those weeks because we had 3 or 4 days before we did any challenges or anything. So they were really on the outs only because they just hadn't been talking to us as much and we just didn't know them as well and didn't kind of know where they were. And so, you know, when you don't talk to people that much, we weren't graduating into any serious conversations. We
Yeah,
weren't having any real
Mhm.
strategic conversations. So we're just like, oh, hey, how's the day? You know, and Janet's always running around doing a bunch of stuff. And so like, and I think she was like very much like only talking a little bit at a time. And I was, you know, I'm a little bit more kind of assertive about like reaching out and talking to people first. And so I think she and I built a quick kind of response. Same with Johnny, actually. I don't think he was talking to many people other than me. And so I had like a line of communication and felt like I was the only one who was like crossing over that much. So maybe the rest of them had that boot order in their mind. I certainly didn't. And in fact, wanted to keep Janet, but of course she left. And Johnny, we really hadn't talked about a backup plan. So that was, you know, just lucky kind of for us that like we all kind
yeah.
of voted in the same way because we had not really talked about that. And he had a total meltdown after that vote.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, naturally. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do find it a little suspicious. Like, was there any doubt that it was like a fake tribal, mostly because you would have been down three players night one,
You know,
or
maybe for somebody who had done it before, for me, I had no suspicion.
okay.
I had none. Maybe the other guys had some thought, some inclination. I didn't. I was dumb. I'm like, oh no, why,
You
Shane?
know,
Why?
when
You
you're
know?
in the moment, you're not dumb. You're just reacting to
Yeah.
craziness.
Yeah.
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 I
And
I,
we
I
were
think.
like, and because Janet had told us basically like 5 minutes after the challenge, she was like, look, guys, and we were like, hey, we all kind of want to talk. And she was like forcing us to have like a group session. We're like, we don't need to do Kumbaya right now. We need to talk. And she's like,
Yeah.
look, I'm going to put myself out there. So we had spent the whole hour and a half before tribal, like not talking. So like not talking serious, because we were just kind of saying bye to Janet, and kind of like, it was a chance because Johnny realized that he was a little bit on the outs. And so he was really trying to kind of connect with the group then as well.
Yeah.
So that was very much a non-strategic time where we were just kind of connecting and like talking a little bit more, where we
Uh,
assumed Janet was leaving and thought, okay, let's build this other 5 strong. So I was suckered hook, line, and sinker. I don't know if anybody else was, but I was
yeah.
totally convinced.
Yeah, as someone who is watching the tribal council on the Bubblegum tribe, we all noticed that y'all were also very tight-lipped about
Yeah.
everything you were saying at
Yeah.
tribal. Was there was
Yes,
that,
we
I'm
definitely
assuming?
said let's not say too much
Yeah,
to in front of Bubblegum, because they're going to be watching. So we definitely didn't want to say anything in front of you guys either. That was
yeah,
definitely part of it
yeah,
too.
which was good because I mean the Starburst tribe came out and Erica was like saying all of this stuff that immediately made me feel like, oh wow, she's really smart. She's taking
That's
notes.
funny.
She's got her
That's
thing out.
funny.
She's like, so
She has
They probably had
receipts.
to play more than we did though, because we
yeah.
didn't have
Yeah.
to do a lot of that, right?
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
were
they had a crazier
yeah,
vote in that
mm,
aspect, 3-3.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
No.
uh,
But
Crazy.
yeah, it looked like you guys were a pretty solid team. Yes, you lost twice, but I mean, for all
Yeah.
intents and purposes, you had a pretty solid, like, it seemed like you had a pretty strong group overall.
I think we did too, and I think that second time we lost, I think it was a little bit fluky. I can't quite remember what the challenge was anymore, but
was it the spoon
The
one?
forks,
Was it that one or the fork?
the
no, the
spoons.
forks we
No,
did
no, no. It
okay
was
with.
definitely spoons. If it was forks flying, people
Yeah,
would
yeah,
have
that would
lost
be bad.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What was it? The spoons flying? Remind me.
Yeah, yeah, it was like the we had to get the cardboards and
Oh
then
yes,
fling.
which kind of was like, a little bit like more luck than anything else, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
Apparently Reese said she could do it, get 3 every time. And
Okay. I
she
mean,
did
I've
that.
been
I
practicing in the like 15 minutes we had,
yeah.
and there were a couple times where I was getting 2, a couple times where one time I got 3, but like
Yeah.
every now and then getting 1. And of course I got 0 on that thing. So to me, that
Yeah.
one was like a little bit fluky, and I was like,
That
okay.
that was
So
pretty
Yeah.
random. Yeah,
yeah,
I could in my practice only get like 1. I think one time I got 2, and it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah. So, that one, and that, see, that was a lot more of an interesting vote than I think probably it looked like on the outside. I don't
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
Ryan, if you like saw like my confessional, I don't know what other people were saying, but basically that whole day I had been really working to bring Johnny in for 2 reasons. Now, I had the idol at that moment. I had already won the idol, or already had the hidden immunity idol, but everyone was super suspicious. Where was the idol? Where was the idol? And they were like
Hmm.
scrambling,
Mhm.
looking. And I know Sam had like confronted Johnny a couple times saying, do you have it? Do you have it? And so I kept telling Sam, like, just back off. We got to like bring him in so he doesn't play it. Cause I was also like, just stop asking questions essentially. But so I'm like, let's bring Johnny in so he doesn't throw a rogue vote. Right. And at the same time, more selfishly, I'm just like, well, I'm going to bring Johnny in because if they want to, if he's going to start throwing a vote around, I want him to not throw that vote on me. I want him to throw it somewhere else anyway. But I
Mhm.
still thought, like, look, Bubblegum saw that Johnny was on the outs to an extent. So again, my thinking is, I don't mind taking him in, especially if I've got a good relationship with him, because the rest of them weren't really talking to him very much, or were very much like, like Sam was confrontational. I think the other two, Mike and Coach RC, weren't really talking to him very much, or it was all pretty superficial. So I was like, bring him along. And at that moment, that's the time when I realized those other 3 were definitely talking. So I was feeling
Mm.
very much like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm being excluded. And they never really said that. I think Mike kind of confirmed it after the game, but I could tell that they were talking. I mean, they were 3 teachers. That teacher alliance
Yeah.
Yeah.
well before, any, merge and swap and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of was afraid that I might be on the outs if Johnny left. So I was kind of also saying, I want to bring Johnny in because I'm not sure if Sam and Mike would want to keep me over Coach. I think they would have kept me over Coach RC. They've said that after the fact too, that they were
Mhm.
much tighter with me, but that was certainly an option for them. But I didn't know that for sure. And I didn't want to like
Yeah.
give it up to chance. So I was like, bring Johnny in. And I was trying to tell Sam, I'm like, look, Johnny can be like, let's not go for Johnny. Let's put stuff on Coach. Maybe we'll flush Johnny's idol out, and then, but we'll like also build a relationship with him, and then we can use him as like a, let him be the person that Bubblegum goes after, and he can be like our informant back or something like that. Was kind of like what I was trying to push for. But in the end, like, they were sketched out by him. He was not great at communicating back with them, and I just think it was never really going to happen.
Interesting. So Johnny did actually have an idol, or is it just okay? I was like I knew
I
you
had the idol, but
I knew
I
you had
refused
it.
to tell anybody.
I was wondering if
Yeah,
they like rehit
naturally.
it if Johnny got voted out, if like it got put back into it or
No,
something.
no,
So
no.
yeah.
In fact, that idol hunt, I saw it. I unscrambled the unscramble before they'd even done all the pictures. I figured out it was dark chocolate before even the last picture came out with the words.
Hmm.
I kind of figured out what was going on, and then they gave me the scavenger hunt. I was done with the scavenger hunt within like 20 minutes. So both Chris and Jen were like,
Bravo.
what in the world? They're like, we thought this was going to take a couple hours. We were crazy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a little crazy. So I had
What
that thing, and
I'm
I was like
curious.
locked down.
I'm curious because the VIPs, we got a little sneak peek on how to
Mm,
do that. And so for the
mm,
scavenger hunt list, I'm a big Seinfeld fan.
mm.
What was the Seinfeld related item that you chose for
Netflix.
nice. Yeah, that works.
Yeah,
That's all I
it's
have.
true.
My yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of kids too,
Yeah.
so a lot of that stuff I actually did have around the house with like
Yeah.
entertainment stuff,
Yeah.
but like yeah, the
Yeah, well,
Seinfeld one
like
was like,
soup would work because the soup's
soup.
Nazi.
Oh yeah, no
Yeah,
soup for you. Yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
soup's good.
Pretzels,
Yeah,
Yeah,
making me thirsty.
pretzels.
yeah,
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 junior mints.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
but
never got to see that, so I feel like I was so bad at finding all this stuff. So I'm just like, man, I missed out on all these little mini
see, you
games.
said that, but I never believed you because I pegged you as like a gamer, so I'm like,
I
no,
know.
I don't buy that.
It's yeah.
Yeah, I know that's the downside is like I'm a gamer, but like I'm totally bad at like all this stuff. Like in terms of like finding those items, like I was
Yeah,
always the last person to find
yeah.
out.
Yeah. Whereas I was like totally underplaying. I was like really playing up the like, oh, I'm new to this. Oh, how does this work? What's going on? And that worked for a while, but I think like come
Yeah.
swap, I think you guys pretty quickly said, I don't buy that. Brandon. Good
Yeah.
try. No.
Yeah, yeah. Come the swap, I was like, I definitely want to work with you because I want to get rid of Reese. Reese was the target from our group for a
That was the
while.
question I
So,
really had. Like, how much did you want to do that?
oh, that was my decision.
That
You,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Okay.
yeah,
Joe would
yeah,
tell me Joe would tell me his strategies.
Mm,
I would do my best not to put in any input.
mm,
But
yeah.
me coming from a season where I lost every single challenge except for one, I was like, you're out of your mind, Joe. Why would
Mm,
you do that? I mean, it makes
mm,
sense. And obviously it panned out for
mm,
him. But at the
mhm,
same time, when he was doing that, I was like, what?
yeah.
But I think the tribe swap definitely made that a lot easier
Yeah.
for him to accomplish.
Yeah.
And because he had you and Brian as
mhm.
well to
Yeah.
kind of get that.
See, so when I don't know if y'all got any other questions about that pre-merge stuff, but when we swapped, I actually, except for Tanya, the first day, who like I had a lot of good chats with,
Mhm.
and she obviously was the first person who brought me in. I had a lot of good conversation with Reese. She was actually like
Yeah,
somebody I really like, but because Tanya was like very suspicious of her,
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
What's going on here? And I was like, but I think Reese is actually okay. I quite like her.
Yeah,
So
that's why she was so scary to me.
yeah,
Was a lot of
yeah,
people liked
yeah,
her. Tanya had
yeah,
her as her number two for a while in the
yeah,
game, and
yeah.
like same with Brandon. Brandon had her really high, and so
Mm,
I told a bunch of lies about
yeah,
how
yeah,
Reese and Matt are a duo, which they were kind of a duo, but I
yeah,
over
yeah,
embellished it and
yeah, yeah,
said that
yeah,
they were gunning for Tanya and
yeah,
Brandon, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of just divided that. So
Well, the good news is that really helped me because going in there
yeah,
when it was like five bubble gums and then it was me and Brian, I'm like, oh, I'm a dead man here. I've got an
yeah,
idol that will maybe save me for one, but man, now what? And within like 5 minutes of the swap, Tina's like, hi, would you be interested in joining our little group? I'm like, what? Who? Yes, 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 yes,
yeah,
I am. Yes, I would. Who is this? What's going on? Who am I?
yeah.
And
I
because she
felt
said Brandon, I'm like, oh, is she confused and actually accidentally added me? And I'm like, no, she's already with Brandon, so I think she does mean me. So I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, yeah. For some reason, in that group chat too, she like forgot to add me, so it made me feel also like I was like getting in added a little bit later.
I totally got that same feeling too. I was like, wait,
Yeah,
what? And that is probably like where that like original seed of like, what's Joe up to? Kind of
yeah.
like got in my head too. Because
Uh-huh.
I think I was always, even I look back at my like trust rankings,
Hmm.
even when we had our group, um, I mean, you were above Sherry, and actually, Reese might have been above you at one point. You were always at the very bottom, Joe. I'm sorry to say,
Yeah.
you were always very, very low in my trust rankings.
I was talk to you honestly in the swamp tribe maybe the most because
Really?
I was
Oh,
trying to like
yeah,
really like let
Yep.
you know
yeah,
everything's okay because
that's funny.
I knew you were a bit more of a paranoid player, like I got that
Yeah,
very quickly, so
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
let me try to talk to him, like let him
yeah,
know everything's
yeah.
fine, we're
I
good, we're
know.
chill.
I try to like some of the paranoia is definitely like a play. It was
Mhm.
definitely like I'd play it
Yeah.
up a little bit. But I definitely am also like a little bit like I was trying to be like watching for every little thing. And
Mhm.
I feel like you have to listen to your gut sometimes, particularly in
Yeah.
this, where you like you can't see somebody wandering off and talking. So you're like, I just sent something and I don't see them answering. But then I was
Yeah.
just talking to
Yeah.
her, and she said, I'm like, I feel like he's probably talking to other people, and so it's like, you know, and and
Mhm.
the other problem is like I wasn't working, so I'm like devoting a lot more time to this than anybody else
Yeah.
was.
That's how
So
I
my
feel.
mind's just
I'm dog
going,
sitting, so I'm just in a house just taking care of a dog, so I have like plenty of time to just look
yeah,
around and message
same,
everyone all the time.
yeah,
Yeah,
same,
it
it's the
seems like the
same.
people with remote jobs or stay-at-home jobs definitely have a huge advantage in this
Oh
game.
gosh, totally,
100%.
Especially like I
totally,
mean, um, because like it's like what you're talking about. The people and it's also like a psychology thing too.
yeah,
It's thing about familiarity.
yeah,
And it's like, well, and it plays a huge factor into these orgs because I played something that was like a Heroes versus Villains was a mixture of like a full season and a mini. But it's
yeah,
like, it's like there's this psychological thing, like even if something is bad, which is I'm not going to go into like toxic
mm,
relationships or anything,
mm,
but if something is familiar, even if it's not the most beneficial, more people will gravitate towards that because it's what they know,
totally,
because it's a very
totally,
subliminal thing. So the
totally,
people that are talking more and more with each other are going to be more friendly towards one another
yeah,
and have a closer bond. That's why
yeah,
you see people at work get into work
yeah,
relationships
yeah,
or
totally.
school, or because that's
Mhm.
the easiest thing
No.
surviving wise to do.
Yeah, and like, you know, like Brandon H, like, I mean, we connected, so Tanya brought us together, and I was definitely a little skeptical of Brandon H for the first little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Fair,
he was
fair.
higher than Joe. He was higher than Joe on my trust ranking, but not that much. But we started really talking a lot, and obviously we're connected because we're both gay, and we were kind of talking
Mhm.
about a lot of that just kind of that stuff, and we talked a lot about our like past and stuff, and you're right, like once you get that way, like I would have gone to the end with him and Tanya. Now I did think that I would beat him and Tanya.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't think Brandon thought that. He even said that to me at one point. Um, but I was happy to kind of go with him, and I did not expect him to turn on me when he turned on me. It was
Yeah.
only Tanya for the second time in the game, or maybe even the third time in the game, where she kind of like alerted me to it, um,
Yeah.
and kind of saved me from being blindsided, basically.
Yeah, Brandon H and I we were a duo that a lot of people didn't know was a
Yeah,
duo. Like we kind of kept a lot of our kind of like like bonds like very
yeah,
under wraps.
yeah,
And so I think that made it seem like Tanny and Brandon were more of the duo. Like they were the ones
yeah,
who kind of were going, but like I would get all the information. Like they would
yeah,
come back to me and I would give them
yeah,
information. So it was
yeah,
like that's kind of how our dynamic was
yeah.
always working.
Well, and he particularly in the swap in the Lollipop 2 stage of the game, he was definitely like planting a lot of seeds about you not being super trustworthy, Joe. Like he
Yeah.
was definitely like laying some of the groundwork for like,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm not sure about Joe, and definitely like he and Tanya were tighter. At least that's what he was kind of telling me. But I could tell once we actually merged together and that first vote for Matt and then the second vote for Coach RC, like I was really trying to push you because I just didn't
Yeah.
trust you. I felt like you were like, I just,
Yeah.
I think I had a bad read on you, to be honest, but I
Yeah.
thought you were coming for me a lot, and you may have been once we hit merge or not. I'm not totally sure, but I kind of felt like you were like not the right person. I knew Matt was on the outs, and I'd
Uh-huh.
had really good conversations with him. My whole goal was like be friends with everybody, like
Yeah.
be friends.
Same.
People on the bottom, let's be friends with him. And so I like felt really good with Matt too. And I'm like, Matt, I'd love, to keep you around if we can.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stick my neck out for you, but if we can figure out a way. And I kept pushing you, and that's when I realized how tight you were with Brandon because he kept pushing. And then even when we were talking about Sam and you, he kept saying, Sam's got to go first. And I could just, at that point, I knew, okay, he is
Yeah.
much closer to Joe than he's been letting on. And that was the first time I kind of saw a little chink in Brandon's armor.
Um,
But I still felt like our connection was stronger. I don't know if it was or not, but I felt like it was, particularly because we had the trio of me, him, and Tanya, and I felt like we were a really tight threesome. And I do believe
yeah.
Tanya thought it was her and the two Brandons going to the final three. That's what she really wanted to. I think that's true.
Yeah, I think Tanya at around early merge started gravitating towards you more than me.
Yeah,
I kind of noticed
yeah,
that a little bit, because she was like pretty locked in. I think at least for me in the swap area, like I think she
yeah.
had no intention of really wanting to turn on me yet.
No, she was very protective of you, and Brandon was kind of
Yeah,
bad mouthing you a little bit in
yeah.
that swap time. She was
Yeah,
definitely like,
I know that he also wanted. He at least told me a lot that he wanted to go to the end. So I think he wanted
mm,
to bring me to the end, but like have me be the person that no one would want to vote for,
Like a
mhm.
goat.
the
Yeah,
goat. So
yeah,
I think that was
yeah,
his intention for
yeah,
all of that,
yeah.
not necessarily to like get me out or like or at least make me a threat. So in case there is that
Tar and
idol
feather you
play
as
and all
much
that
as he
stuff.
could on the way.
Exactly.
Blame you for
So
everything. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I'm thinking that probably was,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
don't know until we
Yeah.
talk to Brandon
Yeah.
H and figure out
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So all right, I know the first three votes, it was a bit of a dog pile. Matt, because of the cookie idol shenanigans, and he was a bit of a pariah. Coach
Mm,
RC, and then Sam.
mm,
But so my thing is, all right, so you went with so you're with the Lollipop 2.0, and you're
mm,
talking about this relationship with Tanya and Brandon H.
mm,
And it's like, and then you started cannibalizing the lollipops, the original lollipops for a little bit with RC, with Sam.
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what made
Yeah.
you want to sever those ties.
So one of the big stories that kind of happened there in the early merge was like how tight that Lollipop 3 were. And I kept saying the Lollipop 3 intentionally because I wanted to distance myself as far from them as
Yeah,
I
yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
could. And I said, oh, the Lollipop 3, yes, the Lollipop 3.
yeah,
That's right, the Lollipop 3.
yeah,
So that was like a big thing, and I could tell like if they got too far along, I was gonna get pulled back in and get lumped in with him. I had never been that close to Coach RC. I think I probably misread her a little bit as well. I think she just wasn't talking a lot of strategy with me, and so I took that as
yeah,
like, okay, I don't, and I suspected that those three were really tight, so I was kind of happy to slice them up a little bit too and let them lose. I would have loved to have kept Sam because I felt like he was a great shield. I don't think there was any way to talk because I thought about because I had an extra vote as well. And so there was an opportunity, I think, where I think I could have maybe pulled the numbers between, and this might have been when Coach RC was still there with Coach and Mike and Sam and me. And Sam thought he had Erica pretty strong, and Erica could have pulled Brian. Those was kind of what we were thinking. So we thought we could have swapped to that. But I also suspected Erica and Brian would like cut in a heartbeat. So I never really wanted to spend too much on my capital saving Sam because I felt like it would end up making me too much of a threat. And because on that, if there were a bunch of lollipops there, I felt like I would have been standing out. And I had already won the first immunity, individual immunity, and had done pretty well in the second one. And then I won the third one as well. So I was like, I'm already starting to stand out. I don't need a
yeah,
big lollipop group to make me even a bigger target. So at that point, I was like, I need to like Coach was not a big one to let go. Sam was. He was like somebody in the very early game, I would have said I was closest to. I eventually became closer to Mike by the end of our pre-merge. And then Mike was the person who I felt like I could pull in the fastest. And so letting Sam go was also a way of me pulling Mike in. And I connected Brandon and Mike again, so that then the three of us had started really talking, and I felt like, and I had kind of pulled Tanya into that foursome was starting to get really strong. So that was the foursome that I was trying to build to kind of counter the Erica, Brian, Joe until he left, right? But that was assuming Brandon wasn't going to flip on us, and that was the thing that I probably didn't foresee was Brandon flip, and I don't think Tanya did either, to be honest. Mike didn't either, so that's where it got us.
All right. One more thing I have to ask you about. You were talking about an extra, but you're talking about I know during Joe's elimination, you whipped out 2 idols. Tell me how you were able to get all these advantages. I believe there was something about a golden ticket. It was like hinted at, but like they said in VIP, they didn't say who had what advantages. So when people were whipping out these idols near the end, I'm like,
what happened?
You guys had advantages?
So the first immunity idol, I think it's called the what was it called? The Jawbreaker idol. That was basically the second or third day before any tribals, any challenges or anything. And it was essentially this like word search. It was this word scramble. They sent us like a couple pictures and we had to find letters kind of tucked away in those pictures and then unscramble. And then we had a little scavenger hunt. So that was the first idol that I got. Our group, the Lollipops, had raised the most money for Omar. So we said you can come in and say, so that gave us an advantage. And so what happened when we came back from that first tribal, that first challenge, they basically did a scavenger hunt. We were all kind of online together. So we all kind of did that together. So I won that as well. Everybody knew that. So that was very much an open secret, you know.
Okay.
So everybody knew I had that. So I also told Tanya and Brandon about that. I think Joe, you probably knew about that too. Like,
yeah, it got back to me that day when Sam was still in the game, the final 8.
Yeah. So I'd been pretty open about that one because I was trying to say, look, I'm honest. I'm telling everybody everything. But the second idol, so that was the golden ticket idol that Tanya had. So she had already told me that Brandon H had gotten the idol from Bubblegum. So I knew that, but we weren't certain. They still, you know, Brandon had never said it to me. Brandon said it to Tanya, and Tanya said it to me. So I kind of had known that in the back of my head, wasn't so sure about it. The golden ticket, Tanya and I were kind of chatting when that came out. And Brandon was chatting with us a little bit, but he was at Universal or wherever he was. And so we ended up helping Tanya get that golden idol, that golden ticket idol. So I knew she had that. Brandon and I knew she had that. She maybe some other people knew. She might have even told our small group, our old Lollipop 2 group. I can't quite remember. But so I knew that she had that. And so when we were going to that tribal with Joe, that's when Brandon was turning on me. So Brandon, Erica, Brian, and Joe were going against me, Tanya, and Mike, basically. And Tanya wasn't happy with it. And I didn't tell her that I had my idol. I knew I had it. I was going to play it, but I was still trying to figure out a way to like convince them to switch them because I was like pushing Brian and Erica. I was like, hey guys, come over with me. You guys aren't going to stick. Those 3 are tight. Come with us. Come with me and Mike, and we can do this, right? So I was still like really working all my different angles because I knew they were coming at me at that point.
Yeah.
3 minutes before our vote, our tribal council, Tanya said, I'm going to give you my idol. I said, don't do that. But then I got a message from Kristen and Shane said, Tanya has, or I'm not sure they told me Tanya or if they said somebody has given you their idol. So I got in my confession. I'm like, holy shit.
Well,
okay. So then I'm like, okay. So now I'm like, okay, so I've got 2 minutes left. And so all during that tribal, I'm like kind of like playing scenarios. I'm like, everyone's talking. I'm like, so at that point, I'm like, okay, so we've got a clear 3 on that side. If Tanya's giving me this idol, I'm with her. I know Mike's with me because he hasn't been able to really make any headway with that group. So I at least need to have a 3-3. I was like, I can play it, and I'm afraid they'll take out Mike or whatever, right? Because I knew they had an idol on their side, or suspected they did. And I was like, but if I play that second one and save Mike, then because I didn't think they were going after Tanya, because they kind of thought she was maybe with them. They were suspicious of her, but I didn't think they were going to throw votes on her. So I was like, well, if I at least, I'll keep that solid 3. And even if we go into a 3, I'm like, maybe we can pick off one of them
Yeah.
doesn't want to go to rocks. So that was the whole plan. I could have saved that second idol and gotten through to 5. But I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be by myself, maybe with one other person. And what am I going to do? So that was my
Win
big
out, win out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, rocks. And so that whole next day, I'm like, rocks, rocks, rocks. We're going to rocks. And my plan that day, which is like, I don't know if y'all saw that music challenge, Ryan.
Yeah.
I did.
Man, that was
Yeah.
a killer. So,
That's a hard pill to swallow.
So my plan, if I won that one, I was going to give my immunity to Tanya, which would have been stupid, and I could have gone out for it. But I wanted to like really lock her in and say, "You are with me. I trust you so much. You've saved me twice. I'm gonna save you." And I wasn't going to do that. I would have had to have done that before the votes, obviously, so people were going to know. But I was hoping that they wouldn't have enough time to like really scramble and figure it out.
Scramble, yeah.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay. So that was my big plan if I'd won, which I didn't. So then I'm like, okay, we're just going to rocks. And we were just like rocks, rocks, rocks. And I was like pushing Brian and even Erica to say, come on, just come over, you know. And none of them were doing. And we were talking with Brandon, but I knew Brandon he'd already burned the bridge, so I knew he wasn't going to come back.
Yeah.
So I was really working Brian because I had a good relationship with Brian because we were both on the bottom when we'd merged, and we had really kind of like connected pretty well. But he was another person who like he was good, but he wasn't like talking a ton of strategy. And I felt like he was definitely like, you know, and this is my perspective. And I don't think he thought this, and Erica would say the same, but I felt like he was being kind of led a little bit by Erica or by whoever he was kind of with at the time. And so I was like, maybe I can like drag Brian back and he'll have a self-preservation. That was really the goal, is I felt like we could maybe pick one of them off. Sounds like they were locked in on going to rocks too, if they had to. So, you know, who knows what that would have ended up like, but we were ready to go. I was ready to go out for rocks anyway, because that was like the best chance I had of making it to the end.
Yeah, well, you know, they were voting for you, so you would have been safe in rock, so you would have at least still
exactly.
Yeah.
I
The
didn't
thing is,
really
it's
say
like
that too much, but yes, I had that same
Yeah.
the thing is, it's always tough to rely on rocks because it's tough to, you don't want your game to end, especially when you're that close to the end, to be just RNG, just by you know, random luck. So it is a tough thing to sell sometimes, but you know, for you, if that's your only win condition, you got to go for it.
It was.
That is better than just rolling over and dying.
And the reason why I felt like we could do it is because Mike had been on the outs. He felt like he hadn't really talked to anybody in that other group, right? So he didn't have another option. So he was like, okay, I'm going to go out before then. If we don't, he's like, I'm okay to go to rocks. And Tanya was the only one who was like a question mark, because I know she had good enough relationships with Erica and Brian and Brandon, but she hadn't really shown her hand because they didn't know for sure that it was her idol that I was playing. They didn't know that for sure. So I felt like I pretty much had her, because she was really upset that Brandon had turned on me, and then Brandon had like kind of been shady in that tribal that I think Joe went home, where he had said I should just vote for Tanya or something like that, and she was like, what? And so
he made some joke, which you know, Tanya didn't take it as a joke.
Which she took personally, and I said, yes, I think it was personal.
Yeah, I know. If I was in the game, I would have been saying it was a joke. Don't take any. Don't read into it.
Can you believe he said that? Let's wear sunglasses to this next tribal and really let him have it, right? Because he was like putting on the sunglasses and all that. He was making a big show of it. So I'm like, yes, let's. So I was really trying to like draw that line to. So I know they were going to rocks. They were ready to. I mean, they did. They were ready to go to rocks with me. So I feel like I did everything I could, and we gambled that because Brandon didn't play his idol when I played 2, right? That was just total like
luck.
Evidence that he knew where the votes were going, that he thought we were going for Erica, which we were, right? Because we were expecting he was going to play his idol. So we're like, okay, if he won, right? So he'd won, so we knew we couldn't play it on him, and so we're like, well, wait, am I missing? No, I'm getting a little bit mixed up between the Joe vote and that vote.
All good.
So we were expecting he would play it at the Joe vote, and so when he didn't play it at the Joe vote, we're like, he would have played it at the Joe vote if he had it. He was probably lying, right? There's no way he would have done it. Now maybe he just didn't think we were going to vote for him. I think he was very surprised that he got the stray vote, which was Tanya. Tanya blamed on me. I said, blame it on me. It's fine. But it was Tanya. She voted for him. And so he was very surprised that he got that stray vote. But I guess he just was confident that we weren't going for him.
Yeah. I think the straight vote was the only time I didn't know where a vote was going. Also, like that was the only time where I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. So yeah, Tanya turning on Brandon was
she told me she was going to do it. She said I might throw it on him, and I was like, okay. I wish I had like said, okay, I'll throw one of my extra one. I didn't have an extra one at that time, but I wish I'd kind of thrown mine there. But at that point, I had already told Mike, hey, look, we're gonna go for this. Let's just do it. So, you didn't want to have like a two. You didn't want it all over the place. So we were trying to get up our numbers, but.
But I mean, you fought
flame out.
I mean, you fought valiantly. Yeah, I think you were definitely. I think you would definitely get the CO award at the end of this. You were. Good. I thought you were. You could probably have won this game in different scenarios. Like
I think if I'd gotten through that vote, had we thought a little bit more about it. The problem is when Brandon won, that really threw a wrench in things, right?
Yeah.
Like, because Tanya had been doing really well in challenges. Mike was pretty good at challenges. Brandon hadn't done anything in challenges up to that point. So we felt pretty darn solid against those other three that one of us would do it. And that just makes our chances that much better, right? So,
and like looking forward to, like, I feel like you would have crushed the burpee of death or whatever it was called. I feel like you would have done great.
I was like, please.
And then the final four challenge with the getting it into all those cups. I feel like you also would have probably been decently at that one.
Yeah, I would have had a good shot at that, I think. Yeah. So I know. I wouldn't have I didn't really want to come in and like immunity win my way to the end. And I actually, this is going to sound stupid and who knows really, right? Like the game changes a lot when you're in it, and maybe I'd feel differently if I'd stayed in a little bit longer, but I feel like Mike and Tanya were like really locked in. I think Tanya's a loyal player. I think she would have gone to the end with me. I think Mike is self-interested, definitely. But I think he was pretty locked in. I think at that point he was like really not pleased with Erica. And I don't think he had much of a relationship with Brian. And I don't think Brian was active enough to really pull him over. So I think Mike would have probably just said, I'm just going to take my chances and go with these three. So I feel like had we made it through that vote, it would have been, unless like at Final Four, somebody else won, right? And knocked one of us out. That would have been the three that went to the end. I don't know. That's maybe the Brandon vision of the future.
It's always tough. Like there are some things like I didn't discover until I listened to Corey's tell all. Like I was like, but I won't spoil that. I want to keep it on yours. But like that I didn't realize where I'm like, oh, the thing I had in my head, I'm like, oh, may have not have actually happened the way I thought. But I know I have to get to work soon. I still have time, but one of my favorite questions to ask people is if you were to compare your Vanquish game to any Survivor contestant, we can even do any reality competition star if there's something you feel more aligned with. But if you compare your specific game for this season with any other, who would it be?
Oh gosh, sadly it's kind of one of those like, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of one of the like kind of comp beasts who ended up losing at some point, but I'm like thinking of like Ben or Mike Holloway or even like I'm trying to think of some of the ones, but basically somebody who like just became kind of a big target kind of early in merge, right?
I'll give you Mike. I'll give you Mike.
And just couldn't quite shake it. And the only way now, like I said, I do feel like I had that like tight three that had I made it through that last one, I don't think I would have needed to rely on the immunianos. That could be wishful thinking, but like, so maybe a slightly better version of that. But unfortunately, the game I would not want to play again is like having to win out. Like So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
both.
it's a tough game to play because you're
Yeah.
kind of just betting
Terry
on.
Dietz. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah. Terry Dietz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Terry Dietz.
Terry
That's
Deeds, I
another
think
one.
is I
Yeah.
think that's the good one right there for
I'll go
you.
with that one. Yeah.
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 He's also
Yeah.
one of my favorite players. So
Me
you
too.
get,
Me too.
yeah,
I
seal
love
of
him.
approval.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if he was mean to Suri for a little while.
Mhm.
A little, I mean, yeah, but
Nice.
and
Here's another question I wanted to ask. If you had to say what your most defining video call was, because I feel like video calls were very important. Was there like one that it felt like really defined the game for you moving forward?
Okay, can I give you two? I
Go
mean,
for it. Yeah.
the first defining one was that very first call that I did
Mhm.
where Mike and Sam and I locked in. I
Mhm.
feel like that gave me footing in the game.
Mhm.
And so I felt really solid in that first half of the game. And obviously the swap was a little bit concerning, but then like I knew if a couple of them were back, we had a solid enough relationship that I felt like I can pull these guys back in. They will play with me again
Mhm.
somehow. So I felt so that wouldn't have happened without that first one. Probably the other one was Tanya and I did a call soon after the swap when she brought us in. It was like the next day, I think. And I think we'd asked one of the mods to like do a call kind of in the day.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of roughly the story, like three or four or something. And we had a call. And I felt like that really solidified our relationship. So come swap, like that relationship with Tanya for me was like the most important thing. I mean, she saved me at swap. She saved me again at the Joe vote out. Right. And she was my way to the end. So she was my like I called her, I went back through my confessionals and I called her like my guardian angel a couple of times. And I mean, she really was. She saved me a couple of times. So I wouldn't have gotten, that far without her. So locking in that relationship early with her and then she said, "Hey, I want to do something with you, me and Brandon too." So logging in that three was also really good because I think Brandon was where Tanya was like super loyal and like she was very strategic, very thoughtful, but really good with the relationships, like kind of outwardly. I think Brandon
Mhm.
was like really like kind of like a duplicitous like thinker, kind of more like my style a little bit. And so
Mhm.
I think we were like very much simpatical in the way we were thinking about things. So he was a really good connection. So playing those two, it was like a really good like little threesome that we were working on. So that probably that like group connection that we made like right at swap was really important. And the one that I wish I could have back is the one with Erica, where we had the first one. We had our first call, and we were trying because again, my strategy the whole time is I will try to work with anyone, and I feel like Erica and I were on the precipice of like forming something, and I would
Mhm.
have totally, because I think Tana and her were kind of starting to build something too. So I could imagine a future where like the three of us. The problem is, I think I became a target too quickly, and so Erica was not
yeah,
let that go. But I think
Yeah.
there was an opportunity early on in the merge where Erica and I could have been better, and we had been like messaging each other off and on for about a day and a half, and had never finally connected. And we finally connected like an hour before like a challenge. And she like jumped right into strategy, which was fine for me, but I think she felt like, oh, that was bad. That was a bad move. I jumped right into
Mhm.
strategy and wasn't like didn't do any of the soft stuff first. And so I think in her mind that didn't go well. And she said it a couple times. Oh, I'm sorry about that first. I'm like, it was fine, it was good, right? And I was like saying, no, that's perfect. And like, but I think for whatever reason that didn't feel good to her. And so, and that on top of me being a target, I don't think she was ever that open to like partnering with me. And if I could have just had one more little like tentacle into that like other side, I feel like I could have
Mhm.
maybe saved myself a little bit too. So that was like the thing I wish I'd gotten in with her a little bit more than I had. And her and Sam were more connected, but I didn't really
yeah,
trust the connection. I thought they were
Yeah.
like a little bit combative too. So I didn't really want to have a relationship with Erica through Sam because I was also afraid that would tie me and Sam together too
yeah,
much.
of
I didn't
course.
want
Yeah.
that to come back. So I kind of wanted to go my own way. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have a couple more questions, but
yeah.
one that I always ask because you're
Mm,
talking about what you could do differently,
mm.
this and that. If you play again, and are you going to play again? Do you have anything in the loop? But what would you do well, don't give too much away. in case your enemies are as crafty as me and do their research.
I would love to play again. Um, I think I saw that mini, and I don't think I'm, while the like shortened timeline looks good to me, like I don't think I'd be that great in that kind of situation. I do think I kind of
Yeah.
think quickly, but that's like that feels a little too like
Yeah.
chaotic for
Not
me.
good for your mental health, I'll
Yeah.
admit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I like controlled chaos. Like I
yeah,
like to be
yeah,
methodical
yeah,
about it,
yeah.
but like, you know.
Totally. So I would much prefer one of the longer games. But I would love to play again. Um, I think the thing that I will be having played once now, like I didn't know how I was going to kind of compare to a lot of people. I didn't realize that I could be like a challenge threat. I didn't feel like I would be much of a threat. And I think I'll have a much better idea of my threat level. And not that I'll downplay it, all right? Because
Yeah,
you can't, once your game's out there, really, right? You can't really
yeah,
downplay it that much. But I think it will force me to like be a little more thoughtful about who I'm kind of buddying up to, right? So I'd have to stick with the Sams. I'd have to stick with the Joes. I'd have to stick with the Matts to keep kind of the stronger targets together,
Yeah.
right? Mutually assured destruction kind of thing. So I think that's probably the way I would think about playing in the future. Like, hey,
Yeah.
future players who are going to play against me, come on, be part of
Yeah.
me. But I will continue to be very flexible. I would work with anybody, anytime, all day
Yeah.
long.
even a pariah like me.
No, 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 no. I will not be a pariah like you. I will be open to all comers, no matter how late in the game. I truly would have gone with anybody to the end. Now that was maybe because I
Yeah.
felt pretty strong about it, but I would have worked with anybody if I get kind of like if I feel like I can trust them or at least trust what I think that their like in game looks like. Like I think the problem I had with Joe is like I felt like he didn't see an in game with me all that
Yeah.
much, even though we talked
Which is
about it a
very
couple of times.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Seventh or sixth was like the
yeah,
furthest I could
yeah,
let you that I
yeah,
felt like I could let you
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I felt, and I could feel that somehow.
Yeah,
So
I felt like you were definitely also like you started. I think right. It was the match votes. It was me kind of being hesitant to wanting to do
yeah,
that, and
yeah,
then I could tell that
yeah,
you didn't like that, and then
yeah,
it kind of was like, oh dang,
yeah,
now now he's got his sights on me. I got to now
yeah,
be thinking about how to do something about him.
yeah. Part of that was because you were a bigger target, and I was trying to get the target off Sam at that point because I didn't want Sam to go. So
Hmm.
you were just the convenient foil. You and Erica were the convenient foils, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and if you notice, like our season, like as I feel like targets just like went all in a row, like all big
yeah,
threats just started
yeah,
going bam, bam,
yeah,
bam, bam,
yeah,
bam.
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's true.
which for all of us threats, like we should have been sticking together instead of trying
I
to
pitched
just get
that.
to the
I
end.
pitched that. I
Yeah,
pitched that several times.
yeah,
It's hard. I think it's hard for and this will be my last little statement because I do have to get off.
Okay.
But I think it is hard for threats to stick together because it's like harder for it's a harder fight at Tribal Final Council
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, you have all these threats at the end, and while that's like awesome to watch, it's like really tough because it's like, okay, votes can really skew in a lot of different directions because
Yeah.
everyone has such a solid reason for being there at the end.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes the best thing to do. Like
Yeah.
in
I mean,
43,
yeah,
yeah.
like they should have the three big threats, Carla. Like if
Yeah.
she just had worked with Jesse and Cody and all
Exactly.
that stuff, it would
Exactly.
have been a much
It'd been
different
such
finale.
a
yeah,
cool, and like with Here's for Films Mini, like having Matt and Sarah go to the end was like so much fun. Like it was like what this little season needed. No offense, Ryan, but
yeah.
it was like a great way
It was a
to
Yeah,
great bow on the
finish that.
season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. So like
yeah,
that's my like pitch. Future players, if you want to play with me, I will
yeah,
go with you. I don't care if I lose you. I want to go to the final with people and let's duke it out. Let's
yeah,
have that fun. Let's make a show.
yeah. All right, I have to go, Brandon. Thank you so
Ryan.
much for doing it. Joe, you can still
okay.
ask questions and whatnot.
Okay, I think we're
But it
pretty
was a
much
pleasure
wrapped up
meeting you.
unless yeah,
Yeah.
Brandon has any questions for me, but yeah.
No, I think we've talked enough to it. Ryan, it's super nice to meet you. Thank you very much. I love doing it. I'm happy to talk about myself anytime. Bye.
Okay.
No, Joe, no, Joe, I think we chatted afterwards, so I feel like oh, tell me this though. In our swap, early on in
Hmm.
the swap, how were you thinking of me? Like when we first came over, did you think of me as much of a target? Did you think I could just be a number for you going in when you first got on the
Yeah,
original?
obviously I had no intention of really getting rid of you in the swap.
Yeah.
But I did tell Brandon H before
Mm.
we went to the merge that we can't go too far with you.
Mm. Why?
I
What was the reasoning?
I just felt like you were going to be more loyal to the lollipop people.
Mm.
So
Okay.
I had that kind of read. I had the
Yeah.
sense that it was going to be tough to kind of keep
Yeah.
nurturing like our relationship throughout the entire
Mm.
game, whereas it was a lot easier for the beginning. I definitely wanted you to be around for at least like 2 or 3 votes at least in the
Yeah.
merge. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to like work with you then.
Mm.
Um, but I did know like I saw you as a great player like very early
Mm.
on. Like I clocked you
Okay.
as a great player on our initial Zoom like read. Like
Oh,
I
really?
like from then I was like that guy's going to be a player.
How? What was it? What gave
I
it
I
away?
I mean it's hard to say. It's just like I'm really good at like telling like who's going to
Okay.
be like really good players in terms of like the game and everything. And
Mm.
I got that vibe from you, just like by just seeing you, hearing you talk for like 20 seconds.
I'm like, I don't even remember what I said exactly. That's so funny.
I don't either. I just remember like in my mind I like
And
made that.
Kramer,
But
yeah.
in a weird way I also you were one of the people who I was like I kind of want to work with him
Mm.
because I know that he's going to be a threat. I know that he's going to be
Mm.
someone who's going to think about the game strategically and
Mm.
I wanted people to do that for me because
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want to come off as a strategic
Yeah.
threat. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Mm.
was like let someone else do that. I'll just be the dumb
Interesting.
goofball
Yeah.
that no
Yeah.
one thinks about.
Yeah.
But I started realizing like I feel like a lot of people weren't thinking about the game as much like in my alliance, and they
Interesting.
were thinking about other things as well. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh dang, I have to actually start like speaking up a
Yeah.
little bit
I have to
more
push
about
this a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
Which
How early?
I'm
How?
trying not to do now in future games is I'm trying to
Yeah,
be
right.
more down low.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, it's like, you know, it's like Pirate Sarah kind of like I am who I am.
Mhm.
This is like I can hide it, but like, it's to some
Yeah,
extent it's out there now too. And it's
yeah,
like if you aren't authentically you, like you
yeah,
become sketchy in a way. And so it's like
yeah,
here I am. You've just got to figure out, okay, knowing that, like what's the what's the strategy that can kind of get me the farthest? And can I like find a couple people who like are willing to
exactly.
do that with me, either because they feel like they can beat me or they are just loyal or whatever the case may be. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it that made you not trust me moving forward? Like, was there
Yeah,
like
I
a
was I was
conversation
trying to think
or?
about that. I was trying to think about it, Joe. Honestly, like, I mean, part of it was maybe that like little seed of like doubt because you weren't in the initial group. That I felt
Hmm.
like, why are you in the initial group, and then I knew that you were like the go-between
Hmm.
between Matt and Reese and
Hmm.
Sherry and then Brandon and Tanya to an extent. So I knew you were already kind of playing that in between a little bit. So I
Yeah.
think I was like alerted to you. And I
Yeah.
think and again, Brandon, I think was kind of like
Yeah.
not I would not say throwing you under the bus necessarily, but like giving me enough information that I didn't like I wasn't really like feeling super solid about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a credit to him,
Yeah. Yeah.
wanting to
Definitely.
keep me closer to him. But then I think definitely once we got into the merge and
Yeah.
and you talking to Sam and then talking um to to Matt. Like it I couldn't tell how honest you were being with me or not. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, when in doubt, do
Yeah, no. I mean,
the
fair
worst.
enough. Like I was playing hard. Like
Yeah,
I was playing, trying to talk to everyone and have
yeah,
everyone not want
yeah,
to vote me out. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and especially like going in there, I feel like our swap tribe, at least to my view, was more tighter than the other tribe.
Definitely,
Like it seemed
definitely.
like
Because we got
we,
out our two people who were kind of on the outs, right? So yeah, we
yeah,
were definitely tighter. They had
yeah,
like all sorts of like craziness. So I did feel like we
yeah.
Yeah.
And,
And
and you look at
we had a
the next
joint
three.
target in that, and then a joint target in the Lollipop 3, so that kind of like made it easy as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like, the next three people gone weren't even on our swap tribe. It
Yeah.
was the other
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it's I definitely was like wanting to work in that group, but it was also like I saw threats in that group.
Yeah.
I feel like I thought there wasn't going to be a lot of threats like going on, but I started like around the coach boot. I was like, oh dang, there's a lot of threats that are still in
Hmm.
this game that is
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't think Tanya was much of a threat initially, particularly in the like pre-swap when we weren't
yeah.
playing with her. I didn't think I just kind of thought, oh, she's played. She's probably on the outs. They just haven't gone, and I just didn't know much about her. So
Mhm.
like then when I started talking with her and realized, I was like, oh wow, she's good. She's actually very good at this game. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, I realized she was good, and then I remember Brandon H saying like, I can't, this is I think when we were starting to realize he was turning, or maybe after he turned, and
Mhm.
he was like, I can't go to the end with you. You're going to beat me. I said, I don't believe that actually. I think you've
Mhm.
played a really good game. You've got a lot going on, right? So
Yeah.
I knew he had been playing a really solid game too.
Mhm.
Um, More behind the scenes, so he was going to
Yeah.
have to explain himself. But like, so I totally agree with you. I think we had a lot of targets. Like Erica was
Yeah.
clearly like, I don't think she was as big a target as a lot of people were saying she
Mhm.
was, only because she'd been to some extent like on the outs. I feel like
Yeah.
in the early merge time, like we brought her in for the votes,
Yeah.
but I don't think she was driving much. So I didn't
Yeah.
feel like she was that much of a um, I definitely like thought she was smart, all those things you were
Yeah.
saying, but I also didn't think she had been able to play much of a very strong game at that point. So I was like less concerned about her initially.
Yeah.
But
I
because
think
everybody
her
was targeting her, I was like, yeah, let's go for
her
her.
her scariest element really would have been final tribal
Yeah.
council. Like
Yes. She was a
I
great
feel like
talker.
I feel like she would have had the best final tribal council out of
Yeah.
probably anyone
Agreed. Agreed.
that was in
She
the
was
merge.
really, really always, every time she spoke, I was like, oh, that's a really great point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The way she's able to phrase things and
Yeah.
like make
Yeah.
sure that she's like appealing to like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's like best
Mm-hmm.
interests
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
really like that was scary to me. I
Yeah,
was
yeah, agreed,
yeah. Yeah,
agreed.
yeah, yeah. No, she's good. I
Who
mean,
did
I
you
feel
really
like
want to go to Final Three with, Joe?
I wanted Brandon and Tanya.
You did too. Mm.
That was my final three because I thought I could beat them as well. I
Yeah,
felt like because early on both of them were on the outs, and I basically like informed them and basically was like
yeah,
flipping the numbers on
yeah,
bubblegum to keep
yeah,
them in.
yeah.
So that was my pitch was like that they started the
I saved
game
you guys.
rough
Yeah,
and I saved
yeah,
them,
yeah,
and they wouldn't be in this situation
yeah,
if I didn't do that from
yeah,
day three or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Well, any other questions? Anything that you want to talk about from your game?
No, it was fun. I had a good time. I really enjoyed it. Have you done a bunch of these before, or
That
not
was my
really?
first one.
That's your first two? Yeah, it
Yeah,
was fun.
yeah.
Did you like it?
I loved it.
Yeah,
I was having a blast. I mean, obviously, like a lot of sleepless nights almost because I would like have trouble going to sleep. I'd wake up super early because I'm on the
yeah,
West Coast, so
mm,
I was trying to wake up a little earlier so that way
yeah,
I could kind of still be in talks with some of the East
yeah,
Coast mornings and all
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
you were at a
no.
disadvantage being on West Coast for sure.
West Coast definitely does have a little bit
Yeah, yeah,
of a disadvantage
yeah,
there, but
yeah,
no, it was a lot of fun, and gonna I'm now in the Big Brother one,
yeah.
so
It's fun.
we'll see. I mean, by the time this comes out, I might already be gone, so who knows?
Oh yeah. So you'll send a link when this is all done, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay,
Cool,
awesome.
cool. Okay.
Well, it was fun
Well,
playing with you. I look forward to playing again sometime together.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Maybe we can get on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we might also be hosting a day after mini here. So if you do want to be a part of a mini, you
Okay.
got like first ballot invites.
Okay. 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 All right. I like that.
Uh-huh.
Good.
Okay. Well, that's gonna do it here for the day after podcast. And yeah, we will see you all in the next one.
Thanks for watching.